Goodness gracious, I talked all that time, and I know the guys in the chat are probably going to be laughing at me. Can you guys hear me now? Let me know if you guys can hear me now. I've been talking for about, I don't know, 4 or 5 minutes now. Are we good? Okay, great. Well, then I'm going to go back over everything again. Sometimes when you're clicking everything on these screens and stuff, a lot of the times the last thing you think about is the mute button. I am very sorry about that, guys. But like I was saying, I hope everybody has had an amazing weekend. I hope you had a great Sunday. Lots of football, lots of family time. I still have my kids. The weather here is getting worse and worse. And I hope you guys stayed out of the snow. I know, we have some people there on the West Coast that don't have to worry about the snow. Here in Ohio, it is getting kind of crappy outside. And then if you go up there near New York, it's already snowed out here. So still have the kids. Their mom's coming to pick them up on our tomorrow morning. So we got a lot to cover tonight. The interview with Mike Hartman, and I went over this while my mic was muted, but it was an amazing interview. Just his perspective. How you doing, Macaluso? His perspective on everything. And then on top of that, him just being the platoon sergeant for a lot of these guys that you're seeing. A lot of these guys that are coming on this show, he was their platoon sergeant. I wanted to get him on, and then not to mention he's a Purple Heart recipient. You can't go wrong with that. I didn't get the chance to know Mike Hartman while we were deployed, so getting to sit down with him and actually talk to him was amazing. I'll be honest with you. I had a lot of fun with that one. He had a lot of great stories. We have a lot to cover tonight. I'm going to bring on some guests that you guys might recognize. I'm going to start doing that every week, I think. I'm going to get their perspective on everything. You're going to get to see something pretty cool tonight. You're going to get to see, if you've ever been at a bar and seen two veterans talk to each other, that's what you're going to see tonight. You're going to see a couple veterans come into the show, give their perspective on this. And I think it's just going to turn out to be a really great time. And then every week, that's going to be what we're doing. You're going to get to hear from them. At the end, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to give you my personal take on the Mike Hartman interview and what I took away from it. Then we're going to go over the nonprofit. Do me a favor, guys. If you have not shared the live, please do so. It helps out the algorithm a lot, and it helps the channel grow. And that's what we're trying to do here at Operation Intel Veteran Stories. Through this process, it has grown to be one of those things where we get to talk to each other a lot, and it's helped out a lot of people. We've opened up lines of communication that were shut for 20 years. And just the relief of talking to some of these guys and just having a good time, just talking to them about life and just bullshitting with them, to be honest with you. It's a great feeling. Let's get into our nonprofit of the week. This one means a lot to me personally, and I wanted to share this for a long time. If you guys have been watching the show for, I don't know, since the beginning, you guys kind of hear my story and exactly what made me join the military. My cousin, Brett Whiteman, was a Marine, but he was more like my brother. We grew up together. My uncle and his dad, my dad lived together growing up. and he was down on the weekends. And a lot of the times he would come down during the week too. But he was more like a brother to me. He was deployed to Iraq in early 2005 with the 325th Lucky Lima Company out of Columbus, Ohio. I don't know if anybody has heard of the Eyes of Freedom, but if you have not, and we may go over that sometime on this channel as well, but if you haven't heard of the Eyes of Freedom, 13 Marines died in one IED explosion. My cousin was one of them. He was the sole reason why I joined the military, was to find IEDs. You know, my family went through a lot of pain. They went through a lot of struggle with his death. But my uncle started a nonprofit organization called the Brett Whiteman Foundation. This can be found on Facebook. What this foundation does is something pretty neat. They used to do a 5K race. They used to do, I think they still do the poker runs. But all proceeds goes to a scholarship fund. And at the end of the school year, they give one boy and one girl from East Clinton High School in Sabina, Ohio, a scholarship in Brett's name. And that foundation has done this for a while now, and definitely check them out on Facebook. That means the world to me. But the Eyes of Freedom is life-size portraits of the Marines that were deployed with the 325th. I'm not going to get too much into that story, but they're life-size portraits of all the Marines that had passed away. And maybe I'll bring the guy that travels around the United States with these portraits onto the show sometime. The whole channel is therapeutic, yeah, and it is. It's done a lot of good for me. Thank you. I truly appreciate that. I do. You know, one of the cool things about what we're doing here is the fact that my kids get to see a lot of these guys. Right before this call, we were all on a group chat and they got to see a bunch of the guys, which I think was pretty neat. Well, tonight I'm going to bring two of those guys in there. We're supposed to have a third one. I don't know what in the hell happened to him, but not real good with technology. But I'm not going to say who it is. You know who you are, though. So I'm going to bring on some guys from the channel that you guys might recognize. Let me unmute them here, because if I don't unmute them, not going to be able to hear them. If you guys don't recognize these ugly faces, I got Mike Smith and Chris Lyon. How are you guys doing tonight?
We're doing great, sir. Thank you.
Is he muted?
Oh, I can't hear him.
I can't hear him.
You still muted, brother?
Are you on mute? Let me see here. No, he should be good. I got him unmuted. Look at him. Can't. What you guys didn't realize is he's the reason. He's the one that didn't know what he was doing. No, I'm joking. It's probably my fault. Give me 1 second here.
This is the best conversation I ever had with him.
Yeah, I know. I don't know why I can't hear him. Let's see here. You guys are going to have to give me a second here, just because this is one of those things where it's a brand new thing to the channel, and I want to make sure. Can you hear me, Lion?
Can you hear?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we can't hear you. Let's see.
All right. So while Tim's trying to figure this out, I'm going to tell you a story about Tim since he wants to hear everybody else.
Oh God.
Can you hear me?
We got you now.
It was his fault.
No, it wasn't. It was never muted.
I don't know.
All
You
right,
can't-
let's
I
hear
appreciate
the
you
story.
coming. No, let's go ahead with your story. Go ahead with your story. I want to hear
By
this
the way,
one too.
Casey. By the way, I seen the comment because my girlfriend's watching it right beside me. Casey Macaluso, you're getting cold too with Mr. Clean's kids. By the way.
Oh God. So go ahead with your story. I want to hear. I want to hear this too. Oh gosh, I'm kind of scared to be honest with you.
No, it's all right. It's a nice one. I'll start off easy on you. It was one of our first missions out the wire when we were finally cut loose from the unit we were replacing. And I had you driving for me, Tim. And for those of you that don't know, in my squad at least, we had everybody rotate out of every position. So there were times when I would drive, I would gun, I would PC, and Tim was my driver. And we're rolling out the gate. We're in the first vehicle, right? We're in the lead vehicle, so if anybody's going to get hit, it's going to be us. Tim was scared shitless. He was nervous, and I'm not lying. I was playing off fake face. I was a little nervous too because I know how Tim drives. But anyway, we had a gunner up top, and we're moving along, stopping along, doing our own thing, and an IED went off. Boom! And it must have been 40 feet away from us. You know, we were completely safe. Nothing was going to hurt us. But his eyes got almost as big as his forehead. He's like, I looked at him like, you all right, man? You all right? He goes, yeah. And our gunner up top, which was Greenwood, looked at him and goes, that was fucking Greenwood! And he started shooting the 50 cal. And Tim is over there trying to grab his weapon to put it out of the portal to shoot ahead, and nobody that was there. There was nobody anywhere near it. But yeah, and Drillman got to calm down. I'm like, Tim, you good? Yeah. All right, let's look around. All right, everybody fine? And he drove off, and he goes, that was the most amazing thing I've ever seen. I'm like, all right, well, keep driving. Get in the middle of the road. Don't go to either side. And, so got a little trial by fire there, brother. You did fine. The embarrassing stories I'll say for after this.
I'll tell you something. Nobody prepares you for an IED, and when you go out the gate for the first time, the second time, you're more. I don't know how you're not complacent whatsoever. You're a little bit too like. You observe too much, if that makes sense. But I do remember. I do remember getting hit. But funny to tie this back into my cousin. I remember the first time I was hit, and I looked over. I think it was actually the second time I got hit, and it was that big one that shattered that glass next to my head. And I looked over at Sergeant Buck, and I was actually happy, and he didn't know why. He goes, "Are you okay?" I looked at him, and I just looked at him, and I said, "My cousin didn't suffer." And that's the big relief that came from that IED, because it happened so quickly. You're having a bullshit ass conversation with somebody, and then it just boom, and it's over with until the shots start firing, right?
Or the sheep attack.
Yeah, or the sheep attack. So let's kind of get it. Both of you guys got the chance. I know you guys are watching the show. Lion, were you out there on that the mission with down in Bakuba that Hartman was talking about, where they had to dig? I think you were.
Yes. As a matter of fact, I know Mike was on there for a little bit. Smith was on there, and we were talking about that earlier, and when Mike put out there that, you know, he said the F the first cab stuff, fuck the first cab stuff. You know, I'm not political. I don't give a shit. He's not wrong. You know, they escorted us out there and they left us, and it was Mike, me, John, Dan was in the bucket loader, Bruce was with us. We had some medics and stuff, and I'll tell you, man, I you know, with my story and the things that I've told, that was probably one of the roughest days that I'd ever had, and I've been deployed. I've been overseas 6 times. It was bad, man. It's, you know, pulling up to just a crumbled building and having to hand pick rubble off of weapons and NVGs and soldiers and everything else. And, you know, we were talking about it today, how, you know, when we got out there, there was, you know, Mike Hartman was saying that, you know, there was a lieutenant colonel come around, was like, hey, drop your gear and take your stuff off, whatever. And we're just like, oh, hold on. Like, there's a whole building down. Like, we're, you know what I mean? Like, it was a shell shock to us. And then, you know, I was telling Mike Hartman earlier when me, him, Dan, and John were on the call after everybody else got off. And I was like, you know, the first sergeant was out there of that unit that we were supporting, digging these guys out of this building. And he's like running around and he was like just running everywhere. And I stopped him and I'm like, first sergeant, are you all right? And he's like, yeah, I'm good. And I was like, well, what do you need? He's like, I need a cigarette. Like, out of all things that this man ever could have asked for and anything that was going on was a cigarette. And I pulled a cigarette and a lighter out of my pocket and I gave it to him. And I was like, what else do you need? He was like, who are you guys? Are you guys first cav? And we're like, no, we're not. Like, we're first engineers. He was like, oh. He's like, I can't thank you guys enough. You know what I mean? Like, there's a lot of things, like, as we were talking tonight on that call that came to me, that came to Dan, and that's why this channel is so amazing, because so much stuff comes back that we don't realize or we forget about at that time of the moment. Like, somebody might remember a small bit of something, but then I remember the rest of it, or I might remember a little bit, but they remember the rest of it. And it's just amazing. You know, yeah, it was a horrible situation and everything, but like, just to know that First Engineers as a company was there and supporting somebody, and they had no clue who we were, and we were like, yeah, this is who we are. And it was like, you guys are amazing. And we're like, no, like, we're here to do a job. Like, what do you need help with? You know what I mean? Like, nobody took their ego, nobody took their rank, nobody took, I mean, I was an E4 and I asked a first sergeant, what do you need? And all he wanted was a cigarette. And I gave him that cigarette at that time that he needed it.
Yeah, you know, it's crazy because I know I had never heard that story before. You know, and Sergeant Smith, I don't know if you heard that story before or not. You probably had. I didn't. I think I may have heard like bits and pieces of it, but I didn't know what you guys were doing out there. That story coming from you and Hartman, and I believe it was Macaluso and Longnecker. Yep. That just going in depth, but it goes to show you from top to bottom that whole maintenance platoon, first platoon and second platoon. It didn't matter what we had to do. We did a job, even if it wasn't in our job description. Do you remember that story, Sergeant Smith?
I do. We got a little in bits and pieces, but I just want to say Mike's delivery of telling that story, I felt like a little kid listening to the grandpa telling a war story. He delivered it beautifully, pacing, calm, not excited. That man can talk. And, and yes, we were in the same area, but when he's telling his story, I was right there. I could listen to that man talk all day.
Yeah, and I felt the same way talking to him. You know, it's one of those times where, because I had talked to him for an hour and a half for 2 nights in a row, and that was the third night in a row that we had talked for an hour and a half, just sharing stories. That whole interview to me was amazing, and he's the most humble person one of the most humble people I have met. And I kept telling him, and now I understand why your guys loved you so much. Because even when it came down to the Purple Heart, it was like, I'm embarrassed to have one. The guy got hit with a piece of shrapnel in his leg from a mortar. And it blows my mind how humble he is. He's just one hell of a good guy. I understand why you and all the other guys there in the maintenance platoon absolutely loved him. Was he a little bit of a hard ass? I mean, I guess we'll never know, right? I won't say anything.
Maybe to you guys, but not to us. You know what I'm saying? He had to play the stern guy when it come to maintenance, but he definitely had our back. I'll tell you that right now.
Well, and I'll tell you, one time, more than once, but one of the first times, when he was out there working with you guys on our vehicles just to get us to roll out the gate. And you guys have been out there for a good 10 hours just to get us out the gate. And we've been there maybe 4 or 5 months at this time. So, and we're out there trying to help you. And of course, we're not mechanics, so we don't know what the hell we're doing. And we're getting in the way and everything else. And he's just like, step to the side. We got him. Okay, not a problem. We go get him food from the chow hall and everything else, taking care of him. We loaded up to go out on a mission. And that was one of the ones where, not kidding, from the time we left the gate, we wound up towing in half the vehicles less than 2 hours later. And he's standing there in the motor pool looking at us. And he's just like, all that work for nothing. And he didn't say it. To us, that's not who he was. He was like, ugh. And then Longnecker rounded the corner and, true to form, the most professional soldier we ever had, cussed a blue streak that made the other mechanics blush. And he kicked the ground, kicked some tools and everything else, got himself together. He's like, just pull it in and get out. And Mike walked over to him and talked to him and calmed him down. And I'm like, look, man, I'm so sorry. I know you worked your butt off for 10 hours on this. And he's like, no problem. You all say it. Come on back in. And, we went down. We turned racing with you as best we could. Try not to get in the way. But, again, calm and professional. Because, I think he understood that, damn, we got more work to do now. But that everybody came back okay. For the most part. Again, love the guy. Love the guy to death. Wonderful person.
Both of you have had to either lead a squad or Lion's case, he got all the way up to first sergeant. Let me ask you guys a question because it is something that I kind of want to know. Are leaders like that? Because one of the things that stuck out to me was when he said the fast track program where they were promoting people a lot quicker. And I truly believe this. Are leaders like him, do they, when you get up to that certain rank like you, Lion, is that somebody that you take and you're like, that's how I want to lead a group of soldiers? Like, what do you look back on as far as the way he led you? What did you take away from him being your platoon sergeant?
What I can tell you is fast tracking isn't always the best, right? Because, you look at I've only been out for just over a year. You look at a soldier now can 18 months, go to the board, become a sergeant. That's young still, right? Not saying that it's not capable. Like, it's all in the mentality of the person.
Yeah.
If you are willing to take the, I'm trying to think of what to say. If you're willing to take the, man, I just lost my words. Somebody that's not willing to learn, but then you have somebody that's willing to learn, or that's it, constructive criticism.
There it is.
Right? If you're willing to take that constructive criticism and be like, hey, dude, you're messing up. Like, you got to pick up, or, you know, but as a leader, you should always be able to, even as me as a junior leader or a staff sergeant, sergeant first class, even as a first sergeant, be able to call on my sergeant major or my first sergeant or somebody else to be like, hey, what am I doing wrong, or what can I do better? But the first thing is that I'll say is, as you're coming up as a leader and you have different leadership mentalities, you have to be able to look at those leadership mentalities and be like, I'm going to take a Sergeant Smith and I'm going to lead like him. And I'm going to take certain things from him and incorporate it into my leadership. But then you're going to take somebody else. I'm not going to use any examples. We won't get into that. But when you look at somebody and be like, you know what? I'm not going to lead like them. And I was always told as a young soldier that if you don't like the leadership you're in, there's only two things to do. Learn from it and get promoted to be the same rank as them or higher than them, and lead your soldiers better than what they did. That's how I lived my whole career.
And that you brought up a good point there. After the Leonard interview, I don't know if you guys knew this or not, but about, I would say, a couple days after the trailer came out, or I think I was doing clips at that time. But after that clip came out, I got a random call from Sergeant Washburn. Okay. Which blew my mind. Hadn't talked to Wash in 20 years. But one of the things he told me was, he said, if you would have known me outside of the military, you would have thought I was a totally different person. He was at, I think maybe Knox or Campbell, one of the two. I can't remember which one. But he had a squad leader that treated him like dirt. Now, this is his story, so I'm going to let him tell it because he will be on the show. But he told me, he said, I always thought to myself, I do not want to be like that leader. So he did everything he could to be better than that leader that he had. Whether that be a hard ass, very strict, but still caring about his soldiers. I never questioned if Wash cared about his soldiers. Then you go over to my squad and you got the guy right here. And I'm lucky enough to have had a very good squad leader. And don't start getting emotional on me over here. But I never got to the point where I got that high up in rank. I never got to an E5. I was promotable as an E4, but I was in the Warrior Transition Battalion, so I didn't see a need for it. You know what I mean? But I always took certain things away from Sergeant Smith in my everyday life, and I apply them to certain things I do with my kids, and I apply them to different things in my life that I do. So even outside of the military, Sergeant Smith's teaching there in 2 years of knowing him has helped me out become a better man. And I think that's what good leadership does and should do. So I always wondered that when you get that high up, if you look at it and you're like, hey, I want to be like, I want to lead my guys like him, or I don't want to lead my guys like this guy. Sergeant Smith, did you have any experience with a certain, leadership that maybe you didn't like or kind of molded you into the leader that you were?
Well, I had one of my platoon sergeants who, not the one that we had, but we'll move on from there. Anyway, that looked at me and he said, "Look," he said, "at the end of the day, you need to go home. You need to go home to your family. You need to go home to your friends. You need to bring these people back with you." He said, "If you don't trust the person next to you, you speak up." And just like Tim, you and I talked about before, as far as leaders going with their soldiers, if you have a better idea, speak up. We'll give it a shot. And if it doesn't work, we're going back to the way I do it.
Yeah.
And that meant so much to me because I had terrible leaders before who were only looking out after themselves, who were they were only in the position they thought it being temporary, so they could move up to something else. They go get a desk job. And understand, when I came in, back in the day, it was still considered the very last dregs of the Cold War. And that was just still that same mentality. These old leaders didn't want to change the way they thought, didn't want to change. They didn't want to adapt. And we had some more come in and say, hey, this is how we're going to do it. And his name was Sergeant Gunrod, and he basically said, if you got a better way, speak up. Otherwise, we're doing it my way. And that spoke volumes because he would listen to me and he would know whatever I suggested wasn't going to work. He knew it wasn't going to work. He's like, okay, go give it a shot. And go give it a shot. And it would fail. He's like, okay, what did you learn from it? And that meant so much to me. And that was why when we had our squad, I tried to have everybody in a different position because you have a different viewpoint than I do. You have a different way of looking at it. And if something works better, stick the hell up.
That's one of the things that sticks out to me the most. I know as far as our squad does, we would rotate. Like there wasn't one thing that we would do in that vehicle. We would dismount. We would be a gunner. We would be a driver. You had PFCs that would be a TC because we knew what the hell we were doing, and we knew what we were doing because our leadership made us do that.
Well, and the last time that I was hit by an IED, because I was out on the ground being stupid, trying to be all hood and dumb shit. I got back in. I was in the TC hat and the TC seat. We're driving down the road, and about 25 minutes later, I looked over at my driver. I said, "How the hell did I get here?" He called and all stop. And he looked at me and he goes, "Get back in the truck now. You're no longer TC." And I looked at him and I blinked and I went, "All right." I got in the back. And then the guy, the extra man we had in the back doing demo stepped up and was the TC. I didn't even argue with him.
Yeah.
And the guy stepped up, got on the radio, and called up to the rest of the formation and said, "This is what's going on. This is what we're doing." And everybody just Roger and rolled out. And that was why. If I know everything and something happens to me, you guys are screwed.
Yeah.
So that's
it. The way we did things was amazing. And Matt Galusa just said, like you said before, we were lucky to have the leaders we had in 72nd, and we were. One of the things with the interview, kind of to tie it into what we're talking about, that he said was, if you watch the Dan Longnecker interview, he was a part of that ambush that Wash's squad was a part of. And he said that was kind of his turning moment there in Iraq, was seeing Longnecker's face when he came out of that vehicle. And he said to himself, they're not going outside that gate without me ever again. I will always be out there with them. Now, you had leaders, and again, we're not going to mention names, that didn't want to go out of the damn gate. And you didn't have ones that stood up like that. And we were very fortunate to have a bunch of guys, a bunch of leaders that wanted to go out. If they were going to get into the shit, if their guys were going to get in shit, they wanted to be there with them. I'll be honest with you, Lieutenant Bolton was one of those guys that if shit was going down, he wanted to be there. I mean,
This dude would get out of the trail vehicle and be dismounted up into the front to where the IV went off. Dude, love you to death, sir. John, you're my man, but damn, you're an idiot.
You know, and I can say this from my standpoint, right? It's like, you know,
Yeah.
you two have that connection with the route clearance side, but and I'll say this on the maintenance side for us, and I could probably say this, and all my guys will back me up. Is like we were a well-oiled machine between the route clearance guys and the maintenance guys. Like it didn't matter, you know. You were talking about Dan was mad because you guys come back, but like, yeah, he was mad at the time, but at the end state, it was we're gonna fix it and we're gonna make it happen again for you guys, right? And I can say that no matter what the mission was for you guys, the maintenance always supported you. You know, and I can go into you, Mr. Smith. I can call you Mr. Smith, old man, grandpa, whatever y'all want to call him, whatever you want to call him. But what I can say is like, you know, there is one point in my career with that deployment that stuck to me as a leader for you because you know you were a staff sergeant. I was just specialist line at that time. You know, but when that one mission came up and we went to Anaconda, what I can say, Mr. Smith, is I learned something that stuck with me in my career that pushed me to be better as a leader from your aspect was I'm going to take care of this. I'm going to do this. And that to me meant the world. And, you know, me and John were right beside you through that whole thing. And you know, you never, you know, hey, we got to take a break. All right, take a break, boys. You know, whenever you're ready. But it wasn't forced on. It wasn't you're gonna fucking do this. You have to fucking do this. You as a leader was like, okay, take a break, take a breath, go smoke a cigarette, come back. Like, and I kept that in my career to know that as a leader, you have to give people a break sometimes. You have to give them that time to take a deep breath, realize what the hell's going on, and come back into it. And you know, we never gave up on you. And I'm telling you, that stuck through me all the way up through as a first arm. You know, when I had soldiers that were struggling, I didn't come out and just let loose and you're fucked up. No, like, hey, let's talk about this. Why is this going on? What is happening? But the things that you did, you know, it wasn't just angry Sergeant Smith. Yeah, I was an asshole. I did dumb shit, but you never came at me. It was always, hey, I got your back, man. Let's chill out. Yeah, there was times where I was welding, trying to build this armor and do all this shit for you guys, and it was never a Sergeant Smith coming out and being like, "Hey, I need this fucking truck right now." It wasn't that. It was the Sergeant Smith that held it together and was like, "Hey, when are you gonna have this truck done?" Well, I don't know. I'm working on this, that, and the other, whatever the case may be. And you're like, you know what? Okay, all right. I'll come back down and check on you here, you know, a day or 2 days, whatever the case may be. But I will tell you this, Sergeant Smith, your leadership style had, you know, you had a part of my leadership style going through all the way up to a first arm. And Lord knows, as a 91 Echo, as a 44 Bravo, a welder, you know, I had a sergeant major that called me a unicorn one time. And I was like, what? He was like, you're a unicorn. And I was like, what are you talking about? He was like, you don't ever see somebody make it. Very rarely do you see a welder become a first arm. Your leadership style and the things you do brought you to where you are. But my leadership style brought me to where I am because of leaders like Sergeant Smith, Sergeant Hartman, a Dan Longnecker, a Mark Bruce, a Butters Dawson, all these people, and I'm just talking about just you guys from that deployment, but there's so many other ones. One of my best friends that is the godfather of my kids, Jesse Moore. He was a leader too, but his leadership style bled onto me, and it just all ties hand in hand with that good leadership. But then you have the ones that aren't, that you learn from them, that you're like, I'm not going to be like that. I don't want that as a leader.
Thank you.
Yeah, yeah. It's one of those things where I've told him many a times, and his leadership has grown more outside of on me outside the military, because he's always checking in on me. He's always making sure that I'm okay. He's done a lot for me. So I concur with everything that you say. That's a big word for an engineer, isn't it? That is a bit. You know what?
Are you on your Google box looking that up right now?
Give me that ASVAB. I'll ace it this time. But no, I couldn't agree with you more, and I really love that his leadership style has helped you, because exactly what you said. Slow down, calm down. Let's figure this out. I use that with my kids. So it's more than just the military to me. I've used it in more than one situation in life. So thank you. I know I've said it a lot in my life, but thank you. Yeah. So was there any one point, and maybe Lion, maybe I do want to talk about that day, the motor pool at the bay, where I want to talk about two situations, actually. Number one, the bay getting hit by that mortar. Where were you at during that?
So, we were talking about it the other day, and, like I said, memory is a struggle with me. I go to speech therapy because of my memory. Whatever, that's we're getting into that seeking help type stuff.
Yep.
It's my memory sucks, man. It's been getting worse later. Like, you just seen me a minute ago trying to struggle to figure out a word, and it was such a simple word. It's been getting worse and worse. If I do recall, I want to say it was one of the calls that we were on with a bunch of us, that I want to say that me and John did, maybe even Dave, a couple of us, we were at the DFAC when we heard that go off. And we ran because we knew it hit somewhere close.
Yeah.
To our area. You could tell by sound where something is. And we ran and we hauled it back to our compound. And at that point, when we come out of the DFAC, all you could see was the cloud. And the cloud was in the vicinity of our motor pool. And all we could think about was, oh shit, who was there? Because we were all, like Mike said, we were on that mission the day before, and he'd let us go to just try to wind down and catch up. But honestly, all anybody should ever think about is, if it wasn't for him sending us home that day.
Yeah.
My weld shop, as you all know, was at that side of the bay where it hit. And even Mike to this day, he's damn lucky that nothing hit my oxygen, my acetylene, my welding trailer. If it would have hit that, oh my God, that bay would have been gone. It would have blew that tin roof. It would have blew that tin dome completely to smithereens. There would have been nothing left. At that point, it would have been picking up dust.
Yeah.
So thank God one, we were sent away because I mean, it blew it to hell. But two, I couldn't even imagine if it would have hit them oxygen and acetylene cylinders. Like, oh my god, it obliterated it. As a matter of fact, it would have probably take out part of the talk that was right across the street.
Probably would have, to be honest with you. You know what? That's one part of the story that I didn't even think about, was all that welding equipment that was in there.
Yeah.
I didn't even think about that.
It would have been, oh my god, it could have been a million times worse.
So, Sergeant Smith, do you remember where we were? Because for some reason, I remember it happening, but I don't remember what I was doing. I don't remember where I was at. I don't remember if we were on mission. I don't remember.
We were out on mission. I honestly cannot remember which one we were on. Probably hit up Carton about that, or dig through your mountain of files that he sent you. But yeah, we heard that, and we got the call over the radio. You know, they said return now, and we're like, well, hold on. Yes, what happened back there is terrible, but now they're expecting us to turn around and come straight back. So that's a good spot for an IED. So they made us take a different route on the way back, and it took forever to get back. And all of us were wanting to get back to see how our guys were. But yeah, it was a talk between me and the LT. We did our own radio line, and it's like, look, hey, we got to get back. But we still got a job to finish. And he was very professional about it, and that's what we did. So, but yeah, we got back as soon as we could, as safe as we could, because we didn't want to have anybody else hurt.
Yeah, see, and maybe we were very fortunate, because I know even on the mortar attack, I didn't think we were there for some reason. But then the other big attack that happened that affected us was that chlorine bomb that hit us. We weren't there for that either. I remember, I think we were going down either Blue Babe. I think it was Blue Babe, actually. And we heard, I believe we heard the boom from it. And then we started getting updates from the talk afterwards. But all I remember is coming back, and I remember passing, and I believe it was Poncho, and Poncho was like, it was awful. And you had the medical station there when you first pulled in, people all over the place there. We were
Poncho's
lucky.
Also.
What'd you say?
Poncho's also the one that took off in First Sergeant's vehicle and ran into the only tree on Four Horse.
You know what? Leave it to fucking Poncho. I really do miss that guy. I loved him to death. He was one of the craziest people I have ever met in my life, but I love that guy to death. But he's another one. Had he have been, because he was one of the armorers there, but he was a combat engineer. He filled in sometimes when people were on leave. He had no choice, but he had to be the armorer. He wanted to go out each and every time. Knowing how hot it was out there in Bakaba, he still wanted to go out with us every single time.
When he would find out he would have to go, he would sit there, he would hop. He'd be like,
oh, God.
Come on. Let's see when you get out there.
He was a hell of a guy, buddy, and he still is. I'd love to hear from him. I haven't talked to him in a while either. But Lion, one of the things that I didn't get from your interview, and a lot of you guys have gotten a hold of me. I know Macaluso's gotten a hold of me. Longnecker's gotten a hold of me. Hey, I have so many more stories to tell. I would love to do a second interview. And I think this is a great option for us to do kind of that format in. And what I want to know is what your perspective on that day, because you were there probably, weren't you, during the chlorine attack, or were you on leave, or where were you?
I think I was trying to remember. I either just got back or was on. I was at Anaconda coming back. I can't remember, but I had to have just gotten back because I definitely remember Poncho stealing First Orange Humvee. That's why I brought that up. But like like Mike said, like you couldn't breathe, like you couldn't react. Because when you go into the gas chamber, like CS gas, blah blah blah, break your seal, whatever the case may be. But I think what a lot of people forget to understand is like when it comes to CBRN, like the gas mask doesn't protect you from chlorine.
Yeah.
So even when you put your mask on, like it still comes through the filter. You're still breathing it in, but nobody knew what the hell it was. So you just put, everybody's yelling gas, 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 and you put your mask on and you're breathing and you're sucking, doing all that shit, and it didn't matter what you did at that point because that's not what it's meant for.
Yeah. Hey, one of the things that shocked me was, and Sergeant Smith, you know this, that PSYOP guy that was with us. Do you remember him? You remember that guy? He and I have a story here in a little bit about that guy that'll make both of you guys laugh. And actually, Sergeant Smith ripped my ass for this one, but which wasn't the first, second, third. Yeah, he still rips my ass to this day. He'll tell me exactly what he thinks. But again, good leadership, right? But we were looking. Do you remember we were looking for those chlorine tanks? We were looking for them. And because they had noticed that they were getting stolen and they were going missing and things like that. And that PSYOP guy was out there with us saying, hey, keep your eye out for yellow tanks. Do you remember that?
Yeah, he said keep an eye on them, look out. And then one time we went out and they were gone.
Yeah.
The same little mechanic shop where they were using them as a fence line.
On the right hand side on the right hand side there on Blue Babe, wasn't it? Mm-hmm. Yep.
And we immediately made a call up and did a report, and they said just keep going. And it's like, keep going. This is one of the ones where we should have stopped and should have looked for the area. Whether we'd have found anything or not, we probably wouldn't have. But we still needed to look. But they said keep going, and the report got up, and then a little while later,
boom. Yeah, and that's another thing. Those guys were a lot smarter than we gave them credit for. They really were. You look at the EFPs, and they adjusted just like we did. It was a cat and mouse. It was a chess match is what it was. And I was watching a documentary where they said that they had named Bakuba as the caliphate there in Iraq, which means that's where it all is. And that PSYOP guy, and I'll tell you this story, and maybe you remember this. Lion, you'll get a kick out of this. So I was in the Humvee, and this PSYOP guy comes with us. And at this point, I was really like wanting to go to sapper school, and I was really wanting, which I probably would have never made it because my run wasn't the great. I was back there with, hell, Sergeant Smith beat me in the run, let's be honest. But he had brought along a body bag, okay? And I am very nosy. If nobody knows anything about me, I am extremely nosy. If I don't know something, if I do not know something, I'm going to do everything in my power to try to figure it out, okay? So we're in the Humvee because I'm the gunner on the Crow, and that PSYOP guy's on my right-hand side, and right there in the middle of us is that little like thing where you could lay your drinks on and stuff like that. Put that body bag down there. Well, he put the zipper next to me. I unzipped that thing a little bit because it was dark out, and I started like feeling around in that body bag. Thank God there wasn't anything crazy in that thing. But then I figured out what was in that. I'm not going to tell you what was in it, but I figured, you remember it now? I can tell by his face. You remember? I got back there and I go, Sergeant Smith, do you know what was in that bag? And I told him, and he looked at me and he goes, "Don't you?" Oh God! When I tell you, he ripped my ass for a good half hour about that. It was the funniest moment because it just goes to show you how nosy I was. I didn't have any business doing what I did, but I figured out what it was, and I figured out why we had it too, why he was using it, which was pretty cool. Do you remember that?
Yes, I do. And now you're giving teasers, and I can't say anything.
Macaluso, maybe one day I'll tell you, buddy.
I do want to say one thing. When I was watching the interview, and Mike was saying about how he was catching flack from other maintenance leaders about him going out. There was one thing that I observed, and it was one of the few times that I kept it to myself. So I figured now is a great time because we're shoving it out through the internet. I was in the top, and I was in line to use the phone because we had the phones that were in the top to call home. I was in line, I was sitting there, and Sergeant Yoke, who is one of the most calm, wonderful, beautiful men I've ever known, and as a leader, he could tell me the sky is going to turn orange today with polka dots. I'd be like, Roger, and I'd believe him because that's just the way he was. When Hartman started going out and everything else, and I'm sure the same thing for Wash, but for me, it was like I'd walk through, I'm like, anybody going out with us today? To Hartman, he's like, I'm going out, or, Dan's going out, or somebody's going to go out with. Great, get him in, let's go. First Sergeant Yoke walked in, and to a certain officer leadership, who will not be named, walked into him and he said, do you realize the maintenance NCO has gone out 5 times since you went out the gate with your soldiers? He says, he doesn't have to go. But he went to that leader and he said, you do. And you're refusing to. And they think you're a coward. And it was Sergeant Buck on the phone. And Sergeant Buck started to raise his head over that little partition we had. I just reached over, grabbed his head, and shoved him back down behind.
Yeah. Not your place, buddy. Just chill it.
Let it go. And of course, the leader didn't say anything. And Yoke walked out, and the man never slammed doors. This is the first time he slammed a door. He slammed it hard. Bam! And the next mission we had, that certain leader was in the back of the truck, about ready to piss himself. And he started going out with us. And even Yoke would go out with us. And here's the deal. For those you don't know, go out with us. That's not his job. His job is not to go outside the wire. His job is to maintain where we are and get everything for us as a kind of like a support thing, at least for the combat engineers. And he talked to him and everything else. Okay, I think sorry, I'm being too loud, so I told me to shut up. Anyway, so Mike, don't listen to anybody. Your ability to go out is amazing, and your soldiers look up to you, and we look up to you too. Because if you're out there ready to do the same things we are, nothing but love, man, and lots of respect. You have more respect than you know.
Yeah, and he is or was in the chat. He was, well, I'm not going to tell you, but he was
actually the one that didn't get on. I'll say it.
I'm not going to be the one that said it. Your guy told on you, okay? Your guy told on you.
He's not electronically sound. We love him, but he's not.
he hates technology. He truly does. But building off of what Sergeant Smith just said, give me kind of what you took from his interview, because you were with him every single day, and I'm going to end this part of this call on one of his guys telling him what he kind of meant to him, but not only meant to him, but what you took away from his interview. I think that's a good place to end this part of it.
His interview was amazing. I had my own perspectives in the ways that I went about things. He opened up, and just like me opened up and saying that Sergeant Smith's leadership led me through my leadership. You take the good with the good, and the bad you leave behind you because you want to leave better than your worst leadership. I'll tell you, Mike was a hell of a leader. He was not afraid. When they come out and said Humvees couldn't go down certain routes, there was one certain route, I can't remember the name of it right now, that Humvees were not allowed on anymore.
I think I remember. I don't remember the route, but I think I remember which one you're talking about.
There was a recovery mission that we had to go on, and we didn't have RGs. Maintenance only had Humvees and Wrecker. We had the Het, and it was Mike's. Mike was like, "Hey, I want to say they took the Het out on that mission," and he was like, "Humvees aren't allowed to down it." And there would be times where, I can say Mike now because we're out, but my platoon sergeant would say to me and John and be like, "Hey, are you guys okay to go on this mission? Are you guys good to go on this? Like, I know we've been up, but like we worked all day in that mission that we had to go to recover that, the RG that, and then we ended up in Anaconda. Mike would ask us, "Are you guys good?" And me and John are always. I'll tell you right now, there was never ever a day that me and John Macalusa would say, "No, we're not good," because we had enough red rippets and cigarettes and chew to get us through whatever the hell we needed to get through, right? But that's how you worked.
Yep.
But that mission, that particular mission, Mike was like, "Hey, look, it wasn't a you're gonna go. It was a, hey, Humvees aren't allowed down this route, but our guys are going. Are you guys good with it?" And of course, me and John being dumbasses, like we're like, "Yeah, fuck yeah, let's go. Like we don't give a fuck, whatever."
Yeah.
So we went. But I'll tell you, Mike talking about his retirement, and he could have stayed back and retired and not went with us.
I didn't know that.
He was at that point in his career, because at that time, that point in time, like I want to say it was like 18 months, 12, 18 months. I don't know. It's been a while, but he was at a point where he was close enough to his 20 years that he could have stayed back and retired. And he could have chose not to go with us on that deployment because he was in 1st Brigade, 101st BSB, 101 BSB. He could have stayed over there and retired. And like you talked about, him getting his ass chewed because of me. Like, yeah, I snuck into First Sergeant's office, like I said in my interview, and I put my name on the list and I went. But I didn't know Mike at that time. I didn't know. I mean, I knew Bruce because Bruce was there. He was over there where I was. John was over there. A bunch of us were over there. Like 90% of your maintenance platoon came from 101 BSB, which is where I was. But Mike chose to go with us. If that says anything, like he chose to go when he could have just. I mean, we were just talking about it today. My son is going to be 20 in January. His daughter is 19, just like my son. And there's only like 6 or 7 months between them. He could have chose at that point in time to stay back and retire and be there for his daughter and not have to put himself in that life situation where something could have happened. He would have never made it back and his daughter would have never known him. That's the type of leader that Mike was. And that means the world to, some people might not know that. I know that now. I knew he had a daughter. I didn't know her age until recently because we were talking about it. But, that's that type of leadership right there draws soldiers to want to push forward. And it doesn't matter. He could be like, hey, we're driving this. I had out of, this is another, out of all of the vehicles in our fleet, there was only one vehicle in our company that was green. And that was Mike Hartman, mine, and John Macalusa's Humvee was the only green vehicle other than the bucket loader that
Probably
we
had
had.
air conditioning.
And we had a giant Ford symbol zip tied to the front of our truck. And it was written in permanent marker, Jerry, Jerry, on the front of our truck because it was so jerry rigged.
I think it's important, and I wanted to have at least one of his guys on here too, to be able to hear, for him to hear what they thought about him, because I think it's important, because his leadership showed me, and it kind of goes into my next segment here, but I really don't care. But just having a conversation with him, and again, I'll say this, it showed me why you guys liked him so much and why you followed him, because I didn't know he didn't have to be there. That says a lot about that says a lot about that man, and it says a lot about his leadership characteristics. And yeah, I'm happy to have known him as well. So listen, I want to thank both of you guys for being on tonight. I think it kind of gives a different look to our Sunday nights, and it gives the people out there kind of an insight into what we do after the rally point, because after the rally point we have a group call. It's a little bit more hectic than what we do now. Okay.
A little less PC.
Yeah, but it's a lot of fun. And what most people don't understand is they don't understand how veterans get to talk to each other. A lot of these stories that you guys are hearing, you're not going to hear if you're a civilian talking to a veteran. 95% of the time, you're not going to hear this stuff, because they're not going to just come out and say it to you. There are some people that'll come out and say it.
Nobody wants to see a John Macaluso in a Speedo, let's be honest.
Oh God, you guys!
Love you, John. I love you, John.
That is an image that I'll never get out of my head. Not in a good way, Macaluso. But listen,
you lie. Come on, don't lie.
Yeah, my new desktop.
Oh God! Listen, guys, I love both of you guys. I'm gonna have you guys both back on the show, because I think it's important for all of us to get in on this, and anybody that wants to come on the show. And to be honest with you, I'm not just cutting it off at the 72nd Engineers. Next week, I'm going to have a veteran on that was down at Fort Hood, and he has helped this channel out behind the scenes. He wasn't a part of our the 72nd, but he believes in the mission that we're doing. But I think it's great for you guys to come on the show and kind of open up and give a different perspective on these interviews, because I think they're doing a hell of a lot of good. So I love you guys, and I'll talk to you in the group chat.
Thanks, Tim.
See you guys later.
See you later, buddy.
Okay. Hopefully you guys absolutely love that as much as I love that. I think it gives a different reality to this show, but I think it gives it more life. I've been trying to figure this out on how to do this, to where we can talk to more than just me, because my perspective is only just one. And without these guys that come on this show, this channel would be absolutely nothing. Without the support of you guys sitting there behind the computer screens, behind the tablets, and it doesn't just stop at the guys. I'm talking about, you don't understand that the wives that are in these chat rooms, you don't understand about the loved ones. You know, one of the most impactful things that has been said to me was said by Dan Longnecker's mom. She told me, and I may have already said this. I know, short-term memory loss, right? But she told me thank you, because she got to hear the stories that Longnecker didn't tell. She didn't get to hear these stories until Longnecker was on the show. Next week, he will be on the show. Get ready. He's a firecracker, buddy. But I absolutely love that guy. But it goes back to show you that this channel is doing a lot of good. And I have a lot of plans for the loved ones. So if you are a loved one of one of these soldiers that have been on the channel, thank you for your service as well. That doesn't get said a lot, because it takes a hell of a lot to support these guys in their healing journey. Takes a lot to hold down the fort while they're gone. So thank you guys, because without you, who knows? Now, my takeaway from the Hartman story was something that I already went over. This is a very humble guy. If you noticed at the very end of the interview, I told him, I said, I don't care. You're going to listen to me. And I'm not very assertive when it comes to that kind of stuff, but I thought it was very important for him to know that his guys absolutely love him. And if you watch the story, please go back. If you have not watched his interview, watch it. If you ever want to hear a good leader talk and a person that knows how to tell a story to make you feel like you're in that situation, go watch his interview. I took away good leadership. Good leadership is what kept a lot of people alive in the 72nd Engineers. So if you were a leader in the 72nd Engineers, thank you. Because it's because of guys like you and girls like you, because there were leaders in other areas, that allows me to be a father to my kids, that allows me to come home to my loved ones. It's because of you guys. And there's something that every one of us has taken from every single one of you guys, that were our leaders. So that's what I took away from it. I hope you guys have loved the show tonight. I absolutely love this format. And I think we're going to roll with this, because there's so many stories to be told and I want to hear yours. So if you are interested in being on this show and giving me your perspective of the week's interview, get a hold of me. Message me on Facebook on the Operation Intel page, or add me on to Facebook. I'll try to get back to you as soon as I can. This channel's taken off quicker than what I thought. I'm getting a lot of messages. There's a lot going on behind the scenes that you don't see. Sundays and Mondays have turned into one of my favorite days of the week. And it's because I get to spend time with you guys and I get to laugh and have fun. It's not so stressful on Sundays. So I hope you guys have a great week coming up. Thank you guys for tuning into the show. Before we leave, if anybody has any questions, if anybody has any thoughts, which you guys have been blowing up the comment section, which thank you. If you guys have any questions, feel free to ask. any suggestions on what you want to see on the channel, I'd love to answer those as well. If not, I am going to get off of here, and I will see you on Sunday at 9 o'clock Eastern time, Lieutenant Onion. Eastern time. He had to remind me to say Eastern time. I will be dropping a new trailer on Tuesday. Then on Thursday, I'm playing with the time. So if it's kind of inconsistent right now because of the times, it's because I'm trying to pick up on the algorithm when all my when everybody is online. So if it's kind of inconsistent on the time, that's usually why. See, this is exactly why. And by the way, Cahill, thank you for being nice. I really do appreciate it. I love you too, brother. Love you, Lieutenant Onion. Lisa, don't say that if it wasn't for you putting the word out there, there'd be a lot more veterans quiet. Love you, Tim. I love you too, Lisa, and the kids absolutely miss you. Matt Galuso, how can you regrow your hair asking for a friend? Sir, if you do not stop giving me shit, I hope your possum bites you. Now, with that being said, like I said, I hope you guys have a wonderful week. If you are a veteran and you're struggling, I haven't given my advice yet, so I'm going to give my advice before I get off. If you are a veteran struggling, talk to somebody. You are not weaker because you're struggling with what happened over there at all. Every single one of these guys that have came on this show believe in the mission of Operation Intel Veteran Stories, and because of everything it's given us. Do we still have problems? Absolutely. Should you still go to the VA? Absolutely. But there are different ways for therapy. One of the best ways, in my opinion, and most of the guys that have been on this show, is to talk about it. Get a hold of the guys you served with. They're struggling too. You might not know it. We're all struggling with certain things. But being there for one another in those tough times is one of the best things and most therapeutic things that can happen to you. So I'm going to leave you with that tonight. I love you guys. Hang in there. If you need anything, hit that blue call button. I'll see you guys next Sunday. Have a good night, guys.